Hello, this is Pixie doing another quick vid. I was watching some stuff to do with Nokian Magic and stuff to do with John Dee and this other chap. And I did some experimenting yesterday. Basically, the construct of language is that each letter is a symbol, and when put together it becomes a certain value, and that's how our language works. But I was thinking that there may be universal geometry, I guess, or something. Basically, different symbols that are universal that aren't a part of the language. They're not like a circle. You know, we can say it's an O, but a circle we know is a circle. Or I did a circle and I cut it in half, and that would be representative of some different digit, or it's like cut between maths and language. And the idea was that other beings in the universe would have this almost like dialing out through their consciousness. So if you're sort of seeking something spiritually in a particular way, you would try to connect with like-minded beings. Like, I don't know, if you could develop a spiritual bond with plants, you may find like fairy folk or elementals. You might have different things like elements. You work with elements. You might have elementals that start to get involved because our consciousness is connected to them. So mine's a bit more broader. It was, could I develop a language first to speak to some other beings? There's like spider beings that they said they could try to communicate, and I couldn't really figure out their language. It wasn't really compatible with English, and that was the thing. I need to step away from using the English language and realise that if you can connect with somebody, like, you focus on a symbol, so you know how like the mass hysteria works. So if I tell you that, you know, Russia's evil, Russia's this, Russia's that, people will start to believe it, and then their mind will project on that, and then it creates fear, and then they've got a common bond as fear, so they're kind of suppressed by it. But what I'd be using is a symbol to act as a kind of mediatory point, or the medium between communicating with another being, because both experience different things. A bit like, like I say, different shapes. I can't imagine anything in different dimensions. I wouldn't encounter squares, triangles, circles, stars, and then just variations of them, like a star cut in half, or a circle cut in half, and it's cut either horizontal, diagonally, putting like a parallel line in there, and horizontally, I should say, and that being a type of language, and focusing on that, and connect other things. So yeah, I mean, and also when I did something studying, I was looking at different languages, and Rosetta Stone had it down. They basically, you'd have the saying, and then you'd have the meaning there. So, De Jonge yeast and these other sorts of things, or Eton. There was like, eaten, and so you'd think, oh, it eats. You know what that means straight away, but there was just the person and the saying, and you'd see that, and like Jevika, and sort of Russian for, I think, a girl. And but when you'd hear that in English, obviously it doesn't sound. So you think, well, how does that? What is that? But then when you see the picture of a child, and you hear that, you can connect them to make that understand around language. But you're creating a different program. You're not trying to decode it back into English so you can pronounce it. And in the same way, that part of your mind with symbols and spirituality. So, like if you smell a food, you can imagine exactly what it is, and that's because you have a kind of you've created. There's things they call ismeric images or something, and they're basically constructs in your brain, in your mind, like crystallized knowledge and information. In the same way, people are idols and avatars. Symbols can represent meanings, symbols can represent entities, and so your mind, in that universal way, has created his own inner universe, which is connected to the outer universe. You're no separate from me now, even though I'm talking for a video. I'm in your mind. So I'm just thinking it through. So the connection was common symbols that are universal throughout the galaxy, and so I used this and I made a connection. I think I made a breakthrough, really, basically, because rather than concentrate on language and how to communicate with entities, I just concentrated on the symbol and then connected it to other entities. Had these different symbols, like variations, like it was like a circle and a triangle and an eye in the middle of it, and it was very vivid. You basically, when you're dialing out in your mind, you'll get a very vivid image, and that's really where you're connecting your consciousness connected to another one. It's almost like it's ringing out and someone just picked up, and then you might get a flash of this entity, what they look like, or you might see other things. You might see is a stronger, different version of the symbol. But when you start to see that symbol emerge in your mind, you've got to lock onto it, because if you kind of dialed in, it's like a radio frequency, you've tuned in, so you want to focus on that symbol and then focus on the entity connected to that symbol, or that entity that's projected that out and you sort of picked up on it. Because a lot of things you pick up and you create in your mind and you think, oh, it's just your imagination, but you create them just too quickly. It was just, you didn't think about it, it was there instantly. So that's kind of the quantum field of reality as well, but it's too quick in the creator side of your mind, which is part of the consciousness of the universe, and consciousness of creator or God or whatever you want to look at it. It's a part of that Holy Spirit. Some people say it as the life force, but there's also the creator force within you. So the creative part of your brain is the God part of it. So yeah. So I had some of these entities that made connection, and it was really strong, powerful experience. And but not all of them are going to be. It's not white and black. It's not as simple as that. There's entities, they're just not human, basically, or they're more animal. So if they're kind of in that spectrum, so we consider ourselves more angelic in our form, capable of great good, but there are, and we're capable of great destruction and evil as well. So we're quite a neutral race. There are other races that are more animalistic. There's no such thing as a vegetarian. They all eat meat. It's just what they do, or they eat their own dead and things like that. So I had, when I was asleep, I had like some really strange dream. Now it doesn't affect me so much because I've got a gamer's brain, so I used to play a lot of computer games and play horror games and so on. At first you get kind of an emotional reaction to what you see, and then you kind of enjoy it and you get used to it, and you kind of basically almost like reprogram the situation. So you're not going to be the victim here, you're going to be the hero, and you're going to deal with this monster or whatever. And that willpower becomes a part of your inner workings of your mind. So when I'm exposed to something, I'm not going to say back down from it. And I had this strange haunted place, or it's a very dark room, had a big hole in the floor. There was some little girl in there. It was something strange. I think that was maybe my character. And then there was a tiger, and it was a zombie, but it had no head. It was a headless tiger. And so if I made noise, it'd run towards me, which is quite weird. And it ran towards me, and I started to run away from it, and I just fell down some hole. And when I woke up, this is the scary bit, is as my eyes start to focus in the room, I saw basically a shadow of these like spider people, and they weren't massive to me. Their legs were long, their bodies were probably like a child's, really, and they were just walking out the room, and I could see this like faded shape of them. So they were in my mind for a bit there, and as they moved, they left, and I was thinking, I hope they'd leave, because they were more frightening than the actual have an odd dream. I was aware there's something else there, and there was something as well just before I went to sleep. It was my pineal, the third eye, and it's a bit like when you get a head cold and you get this funny sensation. There's something I can do when I shake my neck as well, or I can focus my almost electrical energy of my nervous system into an area of my body, so I'm capable of doing that. And I can focus it into the brow here, and that was the sensation, like there was sort of like the muscles or something was going on, trying to tune into my third eye. So the only issue is that if you do fall asleep, be careful. You don't be messing around with sort of. In essence, it's a type of chaos magic, but I'm not trying to get people to believe in it and then channel that, or channel the consciousness of the universe in the same way. I'm trying to tune it into entities within it. So, in a broad sense, it is a type of chaos magic, consciousness, and I think I understand why people see things as shadowy beings, because that's how you travel as a consciousness. And when they enter your space, you're given them that body there. They're given this like shadow form, because they're not actually made out of the ether around you. They're not made of like the earth or dimensional. They're basically energy and consciousness. And consciousness is also like gravity. Gravity's consciousness as well. It has a kind of set rules about how it affects materia, or your matter around you, and how it matters. See, matters is mind, really, isn't it? And something matters to you, how it affects you. And that's sort of the crucial part of how it plays into your mind. So at the moment, I'm just putting together a different language. I'm using my intuition. I'm putting things together that I know as symbols, things that possibly you might see. But I'm trying to avoid things that may be too obvious, like wavy lines. You'd think of water, wouldn't you? So I would be working around with elements, things like cubes and circles and stuff like that, and stars. They don't necessarily apply to a particular meaning. So as if I use too much of a kind of common meaning, I may more invoke someone to think about language than to kind of go off and think more in the spiritual domain. And well, in spiritual domain, to the sort of within the kind of social construct of language itself. Rather, I'm trying to tune into that inner child that sees a shape, or you problem solve things, and it enters into that deeper conscious state of the translucent mental constructs. So it's like the fluid of the mind. Or sometimes there's things they call like fairy force I come across that was interesting. It's just kind of energy and consciousness and elements mixed together. But however, we're trying to go outside of that. We're trying to say maybe the elements are all connected to this dimension, and there might be other dimensions that are different in some way. So anyway, this is Piggy sign off, and have a good one. In time. Yeah.